The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Vraxian home system. Admiral Jiwan looked at the tactical display and felt her stomach drop. The intelligence reports had been wrong. Not hundreds of Vraxian ships defended the homeworld. Thousands. Well, Commander Taijin said quietly, at least we will be remembered. All ships, full speed ahead, Jiwan ordered. Target the orbital stations first. Make them remember what humanity can do. The Vraxians did not expect the attack. Why would they? Humans had been broken for 70 years. They were slaves, workers, nothing more. The idea that they would attack the Vraxian homeworld was impossible. But impossible things were happening. The human fleet crashed into the Vraxian defenses like a wave against a wall. The first 3 human ships were destroyed in seconds. But behind them came more ships firing everything they had. Minho's new weapons proved devastatingly effective. Nanomachine swarms that ate through Vraxian armor, plasma missiles that burned at temperatures the Vraxians had never encountered. The battle was chaos. For every human ship destroyed, they took 2 or 3 Vraxian ships with them. It was not enough to win, but it was enough to hurt. Enough to make the Vraxians afraid. On the bridge of the Defiance, Jiwan watched her fleet die around her. 30 ships destroyed in the first hour, 20 more heavily damaged, but they had destroyed over 100 Vraxian vessels and crippled 2 orbital defense platforms. Chancellor Kravix is recalling fleets from the colonies, Taijin reported. They are abandoning their attacks to defend the homeworld. Good, Jiwan said. That is what we came here to do. How long can we hold? Maybe another hour. Then they will overwhelm us, Jiwan nodded. She had expected this. They all had. Send a message to all colonies. Tell them the Vraxian fleets are retreating. Tell them to fortify, to prepare. Tell them humanity is coming. The message went out. On a dozen worlds, humans who had been fighting hopeless defensive battles suddenly found themselves facing retreating Vraxians. The Vraxians were not running from them. They were running to defend their homeworld. But it gave the colonies breathing room. Time to build defenses. Time to organize. Time to become strong. While the space battle raged, something unexpected happened. A team of human commandos, led by Deho, infiltrated the planet's surface. Deho had recovered from his injuries enough to fight, and he refused to stay behind. I started this fight to save a boy, he had told Jiwan. I will see it through to the end. With him were Borum, Sungho, and 20 others. They landed on the Vraxian homeworld in stolen ships, disguised as returning patrol vessels. Their mission was simple: capture Chancellor Kravix. It was an impossible mission. But then, everything about this war had been impossible. They fought their way through the Vraxian capital city. The fighting was brutal. Vraxians were dangerous on their own world, defending their homes. But humans fought with a fury born of 70 years of oppression. They used Minho's weapons, Dr. Mire's compounds, and their own desperate courage. Borum died in the street, cut down by Vraxian guards. Sungho lost an arm but kept fighting. Deho pushed forward, his old body screaming in pain, but he did not stop. They reached the Chancellor's palace. Inside, Kravix waited with his personal guard. The Vraxian leader had been confident his entire life. He had conquered humanity easily. He had ruled an empire without challenge. Now he watched humans, broken, enslaved humans, fight their way into his throne room. You cannot win, Kravix said, speaking in human language. Even if you kill me, my empire will crush you. There are billions of Vraxians. You are nothing. Deho, bleeding and exhausted, raised his weapon. We saved a boy. That is more than nothing. That is everything. Before he could fire, a voice stopped him. Wait. Through the smoke and chaos, a small figure appeared. Hyunwoo. The boy had stowed away on one of the assault ships, refusing to stay behind. He looked at Kravix with eyes that were older than they should be. If we kill them all, we become like them, Hyunwoo said. My brother would not want that. All those people who died for me would not want that. They tried to execute you, Deho said. They deserve death, maybe they do. But do we deserve to become killers? To become the thing we fought against? In orbit, Admiral Jiwan received a message from the surface. Dr. Yunji, who had been working with Dr. Mirai, had completed a weapon. A biological agent that could wipe out the entire Vraxian species. Every Vraxian in the galaxy would die within days. The weapon is ready, Yunji said. But Admiral, I do not think we should use it. If we commit genocide, what does that make us? G1 looked at the tactical display. 8 human ships remained. The Vraxians would destroy them within minutes. She could order the weapon released. Humanity would win. But at what cost? An old voice joined the communication. Elder Hyan, the oldest living human, had been listening. He was 93 years old and remembered Earth before the invasion. I have watched humanity suffer for 70 years. Hyan said, I have watched us become small and broken. But in the last 3 months I have watched us become great again. Not because we learned to kill better than the Vraxians, but because we remembered how to care about each other. That boy tried to bury his brother. That is what started this war. Love, not hate. If we win through genocide, we lose everything that makes us human. The debate spread across the fleet, across the colonies, across human space. People argued. Some demanded total destruction of the Vraxians. Others called for mercy. The war had cost so much, millions dead, worlds destroyed. Could humanity really forgive? In the throne room, Hyunwoo approached Kravix. The Vraxian chancellor was massive, terrifying, but the boy did not look afraid anymore. You ruled us through fear, Hyunwoo said, but fear only works until people realize they can fight back. You tried to kill me for loving my brother. That was your mistake, because love is stronger than fear. Always. Kravix looked at the small human. He did not understand. How had they lost? The Vraxians were superior in every way. Stronger, faster, more advanced. They should have crushed this rebellion easily. But they had not counted on one thing. They had not counted on humans being willing to die for a child they did not know. They had not counted on love. The war ended not with a grand battle, but with a choice. The human forces scattered across a dozen worlds voted. It was close. Many wanted revenge. But in the end, Elder Hyan's words won. The Vraxians would not be exterminated. Instead, the Vraxian leadership would face trial for war crimes. The Vraxian military would be dismantled. The empire would be broken. But the species would survive. Some humans celebrated. Others felt betrayed, believing the Vraxians deserved destruction. The debate would continue for years. Chancellor Kravix and his inner circle were executed for their crimes. The rest of the Vraxians were allowed to live under strict human supervision. It was not perfect justice, but it was human justice, flawed, messy, but ultimately choosing mercy over revenge. 20 years passed. Hyunwoo stood on Earth at a memorial ceremony. He was 32 now, serving as an ambassador in the new Interspecies Council. The galaxy was rebuilding. Humans and Vraxians lived in an uneasy peace, neither forgetting the past but trying to build a better future. The memorial wall held millions of names. All the humans who had died in the war. Hyunwoo's brother was there. Borum, the 3 miners who died holding off the guards. So many others. Daeho stood beside him. The old soldier was gray now, his body marked by scars and age. He had retired to a small farm on Epsilon 7, growing crops in soil that had once been soaked with blood. Do you ever wonder if we made the right choice? Hyunwoo asked. Letting them live? Every day, Daeho said honestly. But I look at the galaxy now and I see human and Vraxian children playing together. Not many, not everywhere, but some, and I think maybe we gave them a chance to be better. Maybe that is worth more than revenge. My brother would have liked that, Hyunwoo said quietly. Yes, I think he would. Admiral Ji-won, now retired, joined them. She was old, her hair white, but her eyes were still sharp. The new defense force is ready, she reported. It was a force made up of multiple species, designed to ensure no single empire could ever rise again. We have learned from our mistakes. Dr. Yoonji approached, walking slowly. She had never forgiven herself for creating the weapon that could have destroyed the Vraxians, even though it was never used. I have been thinking about something, she said. We talk about how we chose mercy, but really we chose to remain human. That was the victory. Not the battles we won, but the choice we made at the end. Hyunwoo looked at the memorial wall at all those names. So many dead, so much pain, but also so much courage, so much love. They ruled through fear, he said softly, reading the inscription at the base of the memorial. We answered with fury. We won with mercy. May we never forget any of it. Around him, humans and even some young Vraxians gathered. The older Vraxians still remembered the Empire, still felt shame for what their species had done. The younger ones were trying to build something new. It was not perfect. There was still anger, still distrust. Some colonies refused to allow Vraxians at all. Some Vraxians refused to accept their reduced place in the galaxy. Violence still erupted sometimes, but it was peace. Imperfect, fragile, but real. Hyunwoo thought about the boy he had been crying in the square as his brother died. News of the victory at Epsilon 7 reached the Vraxian capital world within hours. Chancellor Kravix, supreme leader of the Vraxian Empire, received the report in his throne room. A governor was dead. A planet was in rebellion. The human fleet had escaped before reinforcements could arrive. Impossible, Kravix said, his mandibles clicking in anger. Humans do not fight back. They have not fought back in 70 years. His advisors stood silent. They had no explanation. But the facts were clear. Humanity had struck a major blow against the Empire. Send 3 battle fleets to Epsilon 7, Kravix ordered. Crush the rebellion. Execute every 10th human on that world as punishment. Show them what happens when they resist. The orders went out immediately, but they were too late. The fire had already spread too far. On Helios 3, Borum led her resistance cell in an attack on the main Vraxian garrison. They used Dr. Mireille's compound to neutralize the Vraxian armor, then hit them with everything they had. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the garrison was destroyed and the colony was free. Borum stood in the ruins covered in blood and dirt and sent a message to other colonies. Helios 3 is ours. Join us. On Terminus Colony, a man named Ki-hoon organized the largest coordinated strike yet seen. Miners, factory workers, farmers, they all walked off their jobs at the same time. When the Vraxians tried to force them back to work, they fought. The Vraxians killed hundreds, but thousands more kept coming. We have nothing left to lose, Ki-hoon told his people. They have taken everything from us. Our freedom, our dignity, our children. We either die on our knees or die fighting. I choose to fight. The colony erupted in warfare. It was not clean or organized. It was desperate and bloody. But the humans had numbers, and they had anger, and they had Dr. Mireille's compound turning the Vraxians vulnerable. They won. On Epsilon 7, Hyunwoo woke up in a medical tent. His body hurt, but he was alive. Daeho lay in the bed next to him, bandaged and unconscious. The old miner had survived barely. A woman named Ji-hee approached Hyunwoo. She was a journalist who had been documenting the rebellion. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Scared," Hyunwoo said honestly, confused. "Why did all this happen? I just wanted to bury my brother." "I know," Ji-hee said gently. "But what you did, trying to honor your brother, it reminded people of something important. It reminded us that we are human, that we care about each other, that some things matter more than fear." "A lot of people died," Hyunwoo said, tears in his eyes. "Because of me. Not because of you. Because of the Vraxians. And yes, many people died. But they died fighting for something they believed in. That is better than living on your knees." Ji-hee recorded Hyunwoo's story. She sent it across every communication channel she could access. Within days, Hyunwoo's face was everywhere. The boy who tried to bury his brother. The child the Vraxians tried to execute. The spark that started the fire. Hyunwoo did not want to be a symbol. He just wanted his brother back. But he understood that sometimes what we want does not matter. Sometimes we become part of something bigger than ourselves. Admiral Ji-won coordinated the scattered human forces from her damaged command ship. The battle at Epsilon 7 had cost her half the fleet, but it had been worth it. Colonies across human space were rising up. The Vraxians were stretched thin, trying to put out fires on a dozen worlds at once. But Ji-won knew the truth. Humanity was winning battles, but they could not win the war. Not like this. The Vraxians had too many ships, too many soldiers, too many resources. Eventually, they would crush the rebellions one by one. She called a meeting of the remaining fleet commanders and resistance leaders. They gathered via hologram in the Defiance's war room. "We need to change the game," Ji-won said. "Right now we are reacting. We are defending. We need to attack." "Attack what?" someone asked. "We barely have enough ships to defend the colonies we have liberated." "We attack the Vraxian homeworld," Ji-won said. Silence filled the room. Then Commander Taejin laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "That is suicide. They have hundreds of ships defending their home system. We would be destroyed before we even reached the planet." "Maybe," Ji-won said. "But think about it. Right now the Vraxians are sending fleets to crush our rebellions. If we threaten their homeworld, they have to pull those fleets back to defend it. That gives the colonies time to fortify, to prepare, to build their own defenses. You are talking about a suicide mission to buy time, Tejan said. Yes, but is that not what we did at Epsilon 7? And it worked. Borum's hologram leaned forward. The people will support this. After what happened to Hyunwoo, after seeing that we can fight back, they will support anything that hurts the Vraxians. The vote was close. Many commanders argued against it. But in the end, they agreed. The human fleet would strike at the heart of the Vraxian Empire. While the fleet prepared, a scientist named Minho worked in a hidden laboratory. He had been a pacifist before the war, believing that violence never solved anything. Watching the attempted execution of Hyunwoo changed his mind. Now he designed weapons. Terrible weapons. Bombs that could crack a planet's crust. Biological agents that targeted Vraxian physiology. Nanomachines that could eat through Vraxian ships. He worked 18 hours a day, driven by a cold fury. This is not like you, his assistant said, worried. You always said science should help people, not hurt them. The Vraxians are not people, Minho said flatly. They are monsters who tried to kill a child for loving his brother. I will not stop until every Vraxian knows what it feels like to be afraid. On Epsilon 7, Daeho finally woke up. He was covered in bandages and could barely move, but he was alive. Hyunwoo sat beside his bed, waiting. You saved me, Hyunwoo said. A lot of people saved you, Daeho replied, his voice weak. I just helped. Why? You did not know me. Daeho thought about his daughter, about the child he could not save. Because it was the right thing to do. Because I was tired of living in fear. Because someone had to stand up and say no. Hyunwoo took Daeho's hand. Thank you. For giving me a chance to grow up. What will you do when you grow up? I do not know yet, but I will make sure my brother did not die for nothing. I will make sure all those people who fought for me did not die for nothing. Across human space, the Vraxians fought to regain control. They sent fleets to reconquer rebellious colonies. They executed prisoners. They bombed cities from orbit. The violence was terrible, but for every colony they reclaimed, 2 more rose up. For every human they killed, 10 more joined the fight. The Vraxians had ruled through fear for 70 years. But fear only works until it breaks, and once it breaks, it turns into something else. Rage. 3 months after Hyunwoo's rescue, the human fleet gathered for the attack on the Vraxian homeworld. They had 52 ships. A mixture of old Defense Force vessels, captured Vraxian ships, and civilian transports converted into warships. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. Admiral G1 stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked at her crew. They were young and old, military and civilian. They came from a dozen different colonies. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing they would probably not come back. I will not lie to you, she said. We are going to die today. Most of us, maybe all of us. But we are going to die fighting. We are going to show the Vraxians that humanity will never stop, never surrender, never give up. We are going to show them that trying to kill Hyunwoo was the biggest mistake they ever made. The crew cheered, not because they wanted to die, but because they wanted to matter. They wanted their deaths to mean something. All ships, G1 said. Prepare to jump. Target, Vraxian Prime. May we be remembered. The fleet disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward the heart of the enemy empire. On Epsilon 7, Hyunwoo watched them go. He did not understand war or strategy or tactics. He was still just a child, but he understood sacrifice. He understood that people were dying because he had tried to bury his brother. He made a promise to himself. If he survived this war, he would spend his life making sure it meant something. He would build a future where children did not have to watch their brothers die, where people did not have to live in fear. It was a big promise for a small boy, but then, sometimes the smallest people carry the biggest hopes. The news reached Admiral G1 in the worst possible way, through a smuggler's encrypted message that simply read, "They are killing a child in 3 days. Epsilon 7. The boy tried to bury his brother." G1 sat in the command chair of the carrier Defiance, hidden deep in an asteroid field that the Vraxians had not yet bothered to search. She was 58 years old and had spent the last 30 years living in the dark, commanding what remained of the Earth Defense Fleet. 12 ships. That was all that survived of humanity's once mighty navy. She read the message 3 times. Then she stood and walked to the observation deck, staring out at the cold stars. Behind her, Commander Tejan approached quietly. You have seen it, Tajin said. It was not a question. I have seen it, Jiwon replied. What are people saying? The crew wants to do something. The other ships are receiving the same messages. Resistance cells across 15 colonies are asking what we are going to do. Jiwon closed her eyes. She had spent 3 decades being careful, being patient, waiting for the right moment to strike back at the Vraxians. She had told herself that rushing in would only get everyone killed. Better to wait, to plan, to prepare but a child. They were going to execute a child for trying to bury his brother. Call the other commanders, she said. Emergency meeting in 1 hour. The meeting lasted less than 30 minutes. Every ship captain voted the same way. They would attack Epsilon 7 during the execution. It was suicide. The Vraxians had 3 capital ships in orbit around that colony, along with dozens of fighters and orbital defense platforms. The human fleet would be outnumbered and outgunned. Nobody cared. Not anymore. While the fleet prepared to move, other plans were forming across human space. On colony world Helios 3, a young woman named Boram sat in a basement with 20 other resistance fighters. They were looking at a map of their colony's main garrison. If we are doing this, we do it at the same time as the execution on Epsilon 7, Boram said. She was 24, fierce, and had been fighting the Vraxians since she was 16. The Vraxians will be distracted. They will be watching their great demonstration. That is when we strike. They will kill us all, someone said. Maybe, Boram replied. But I have been thinking about something. For 70 years we have been afraid. We have let them break us because we were too scared to fight back. But I am not scared anymore. They are going to kill a boy for loving his brother. If we let that happen without fighting, what does that make us? One by one, the resistance fighters nodded. Messages went out that night to other cells. The response was immediate. They would all strike at the same time. On Epsilon 7 in the titanium mines, Deho was having similar conversations. He gathered the miners he trusted, men and women he had worked beside for years. They met in the deepest tunnels where the Vraxian sensors could not reach. The boy dies in 2 days, Deho said. I propose we do not let that happen. How? Someone asked. The Vraxians guard him. Their technology is better than ours. We are miners, not soldiers. I was a soldier once, Deho said quietly, and some of you were too before the mines. We know these tunnels better than the Vraxians do. Some of these tunnels run under the city, under the detention center where they keep the boy. Understanding dawned on their faces. You want to break him out? A woman named Mirai said. She was a doctor, forced to work in the mines after she refused to conduct experiments on human prisoners. During the execution, yes, when all eyes are on the square, we go in from below. We take weapons from the armory we hid on the way. We get the boy and we run. Run where? Someone asked. The Vraxians control everything. Maybe not everything, Deho said. I have heard rumors. There is a fleet out there hiding in the dark. If we can get the boy and cause enough chaos, maybe that fleet will see an opening. Maybe this is the moment we have been waiting for. It was a desperate plan. It would probably fail. Most of them would likely die. But as Deho looked around the circle, he saw something he had not seen in years. Hope. Far away, in a research facility on another colony, Dr. Mirai, a different Mirai than the one in Deho's group, worked through the night. She was a xenobiologist who had been studying the Vraxians for years, forced to help them understand human biology so they could better control the population. But she had also been studying them. The Vraxians were tough, but they were not invincible. Their armor was biological, part of their body. It made them resistant to most weapons, but Mirai had found a weakness. A specific compound could temporarily neutralize their natural defenses. She had been refining it for 5 years, waiting for the right time to use it. The news about Hyunwoo made her decision easy. She worked faster, preparing batches of the compound. It could be dispersed through the air. If she could get it to the right people, spread across multiple colonies, it could level the playing field. For a short time, humans and Vraxians would be equals. She sent encrypted messages to every resistance cell she could contact. The response was overwhelming. They all wanted the compound. They all wanted to fight. A smuggler named Sung-ho became the courier. He was 40 years old, had been smuggling goods between colonies for decades, and knew every secret route through Vraxian space. He loaded his ship with canisters of Mirai's compound and began a desperate run across 5 star systems. You know you are probably going to die. his co-pilot said. Probably, Sung-ho agreed, but I have been running from the Vraxians my whole life. Maybe it is time to run towards something instead. On Epsilon 7, Hyunwoo sat in his cell and stared at the wall. He was small for his age, and the cell was built for adult prisoners, so everything felt too big. The Vraxians had not hurt him yet. They were saving him for the execution. He thought about his brother, about how his brother had always protected him, even when it meant taking risks. His brother had joined the resistance to fight for a better future. Hyunwoo had begged him not to go, had cried and pleaded, but his brother had just smiled and said, "Someone has to fight. Someone has to show them we are not afraid." Now his brother was dead and Hyunwoo was alone. He wondered if his brother had been scared at the end. He wondered if he would be scared when his own time came. The cell door opened. A Vraxian guard looked in, checking on him. Hyunwoo stared back, refusing to look away. The guard made a clicking sound that might have been laughter, then closed the door. Hyunwoo pulled his knees to his chest. 2 more days. He just had to be brave for 2 more days. His brother would want him to be brave. What Hyunwoo did not know was that across human space, people were preparing to fight for him. Not because they knew him, but because he represented something important. Innocence, hope, the idea that some things were worth dying for. In the asteroid field, Ji-won watched her fleet prepare for battle. Engineers worked around the clock to get every ship ready. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Pilots ran simulations even though everyone knew the simulations did not matter. This battle would be chaos. Taejin found her on the observation deck again. "The fleet is ready," he said. "We can leave in 6 hours. That will put us at Epsilon 7 exactly when the execution is scheduled." "Good," Ji-won said. "Send a message to all ships. Tell them what we are doing and why. Make sure every person on every ship understands. We are not just fighting for one boy. We are fighting for what that boy represents. We are fighting for the idea that humanity will not lie down and die." "They already know," Taejin said softly. "Everyone knows. That is why they are ready." Ji-won nodded. She thought about all the years of hiding, of running, of watching the Vraxians crush everything humanity had built. She thought about how many times she had held back, waiting for a better opportunity. This was not a better opportunity. This was probably the worst possible time to attack. But it did not matter anymore. Some things were worth fighting for, even when you knew you would lose. The morning of the execution arrived cold and gray. Daeho stood in the mining tunnels with 37 people. They had managed to steal weapons from a supply depot the night before, old human rifles that the Vraxians kept as trophies, some plasma cutters from the mines, and a few Vraxian pistols taken from guards who would never report them missing. It was not enough, not nearly enough, but it would have to do. "Remember the plan," Daeho said, his voice echoing in the tunnel. "We come up under the detention center. We use the plasma cutters to break through the floor. We get the boy and we run. Do not stop to fight unless you have to. Our goal is to save Hyunwoo, nothing else." Mireille, the miner, not the scientist, checked her stolen rifle. "And if we cannot save him?" Daeho met her eyes. "Then we die trying. That is more than we have done in 70 years. Above ground, the square was filling with people. The Vraxians had ordered every human in New Seoul to attend. Thousands of people packed into the space, surrounded by Vraxian soldiers. More soldiers stood on rooftops. Gun platforms had been set up at every corner. Thrakis wanted a show. He wanted humanity to watch a child die and know that resistance was hopeless. In orbit, 3 Vraxian capital ships hung like dark moons. Their sensors watched the planet below. Their weapons were charged and ready. The Vraxians were confident. Why would they not be? They had crushed humanity for 70 years. Today would be no different. They were wrong. At exactly noon, multiple things happened at once. In the asteroid field, Admiral Ji-won gave the order. "All ships jump. Target Epsilon 7. Engage the moment we arrive." The human fleet tore open holes in space and disappeared, crossing 3 light years in an instant. They emerged directly above Epsilon 7, inside the orbit of the Vraxian capital ships. It was a dangerous jump. The kind that could tear a ship apart if the calculations were wrong. But the calculations were not wrong. The Vraxians had 30 seconds of confusion before they realized they were under attack. On the planet's surface, in 17 different locations, a young woman named Youngmi activated a virus. She was a hacker, had been breaking into Vraxian systems for years. The virus was her masterpiece. It crashed communication satellites, disrupted sensor networks, and shut down automated defense systems across the entire sector. The Vraxians suddenly went deaf and blind. In the tunnels beneath New Sol, Deho and his team reached their target. They cut through the detention center floor with plasma torches. Alarms began screaming, but the alarms were connected to systems that Youngmi had just crashed. Nobody came to investigate. They climbed up into the detention center. 3 Vraxian guards turned to face them, raising their weapons. Deho and his miners opened fire. The guards' armor absorbed most of the damage. They would have won easily. Then the air in the detention center turned slightly purple. A mist that had been released from canisters hidden throughout the city reached the building. It was Dr. Mirai's compound, the one Sungho had risked his life to deliver. Within seconds, the Vraxian guards began to slow. Their armor stopped working. They became vulnerable. Deho shot the first guard 3 times. The guard went down. The other miners handled the rest. "Find the boy," Deho shouted. They ran through the corridors, kicking open cell doors. They found Hyunwoo in the 3rd cell. They checked. The boy was curled in the corner, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. "We are getting you out of here," Deho said, extending his hand. "Come with us." Hyunwoo stared at him. "Who are you?" "Someone who is tired of watching children die." "Now move!" In the square, chaos erupted. Thrakis stood on the platform, preparing to bring out Hyunwoo for the execution. The platform suddenly exploded. Colonists who had been hiding weapons opened fire on the Vraxian soldiers. The purple mist spread through the square, and the Vraxians found their armor failing. For the first time in 70 years, humans and Vraxians were on equal footing. The battle was vicious. Vraxians were still strong and fast, but now human bullets could hurt them. Human blades could cut them. Colonists who had been miners and farmers and teachers remembered how to fight. They had been soldiers once before the Vraxians broke them. Now they were soldiers again. In orbit, the human fleet engaged the Vraxian capital ships. The battle was brutal. 2 human ships died in the first minute, torn apart by Vraxian plasma cannons. But the remaining ships pressed forward, targeting weak points using tactics the Vraxians had not seen in decades. Commander Tajin led a squadron of fighters against the orbital defense platforms. "Remember," he said over the comm, "we do not need to win. We just need to buy time for the people on the ground." Half his squadron died. The other half destroyed 3 platforms. Deho and his team fought their way through the detention center. Hyunwoo stayed close to Deho, too scared to do anything else. They reached the tunnels and started running. Behind them, Vraxian reinforcements arrived. The guards were confused and angry, their communication systems down, their armor not working properly. The miners held them off at the tunnel entrance. 3 miners died buying time for the others to escape. On the surface, Thrakis realized what was happening. The execution was ruined. The humans were fighting back. His communications were down. He could not contact his ships in orbit. Everything was falling apart. He saw a group of humans fighting near the platform. He recognized one of them, the miner from the execution 3 days ago. The one who had looked at the boy with dead eyes. Thrakis charged toward Deho. The human was old and scarred, no match for a Vraxian warrior, even with the purple mist weakening his armor. Thrakis would kill this human and restore order. Deho saw him coming. He pushed Hyunwoo toward Mirai. "Get him out of here." Then he turned to face the Vraxian governor. Thrakis was huge, twice Deho's size, with claws that could tear through metal. But Deho had lost everything to the Vraxians. His wife, his daughter, his dignity, his hope. For 70 years he had been broken. He was not broken anymore. They fought in the middle of the square while the battle raged around them. Thrakis slashed with his claws. Deho dodged, barely, feeling the claws tear through his jacket. He fired his rifle at point-blank range. The shots hit Thrakis in the chest, and without his armor's full protection, they hurt. Thrakis screamed in pain and rage. He grabbed Deho and threw him across the square. Deho hit the ground hard, feeling ribs crack. He could not breathe. He could not stand. Thrakis approached slowly, savoring the moment. "You cannot win, human. You are nothing. You have always been nothing." Deho looked up at the Vraxian. Blood ran down his face. His body was broken, but his eyes were not dead anymore. They burned with something Thrakis had not seen in human eyes for a long time. "I am not nothing," Deho said. "I am a father. I am a soldier. I am human, and we do not let children die." He grabbed a plasma cutter that a fallen miner had dropped. With the last of his strength, he drove it into Thrakis' exposed chest where the armor had failed. He activated it. Thrakis screamed. The sound was terrible, inhuman. He tried to pull away, but Deho held on, using his weight to keep the plasma cutter in place. The Vraxian collapsed, taking Deho down with him. When Mirai reached them, Thrakis was dead. Deho was barely alive, his breathing shallow. But he was smiling. The boy? He whispered. Safe, Mirai said, tears running down her face. He is safe. Deho closed his eyes. Good, that is good. In orbit, the battle continued. The human fleet was being destroyed, but they had accomplished their goal. The Vraxians were in chaos. Their governor was dead. Their ground forces were in retreat. Admiral Jiwan, watching from her damaged command ship, sent a single message to all human colonies. We have won at Epsilon 7. The boy lives. Rise up. Rise up now. The message spread across human space like fire. On colony after colony, humans who had been waiting for a sign received it. They rose against their oppressors. It would not be easy. Many would die. But the message was clear. Humanity could fight back. Humanity could win. The war had truly begun. The morning sun rose over New Seoul, but it brought no warmth to the people gathered in the central square. Deho stood among the crowd, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his eyes fixed on the metal platform at the square's center. He had not wanted to come. Nobody wanted to come. But the Vraxians made it clear, attend or be punished. Missing an execution meant your family would be next. The Vraxians had ruled over humanity for 70 years. They came from beyond the stars. Massive creatures that looked like insects crossed with nightmares. Their bodies were covered in dark armor that could stop bullets. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness. They were fast, strong, and cruel. When they first arrived, humanity fought back. The war lasted 3 years. Humanity lost. Now the colonies that humans had built across the galaxy belonged to the Vraxians. Earth itself was a distant memory, too far away to matter. The colonists worked in mines, factories, and farms. They produced everything the Vraxians demanded. In return, they were allowed to live. Barely. Deho had been a captain once in the Earth Defense Force. He had commanded a ship, had people who looked up to him. That was before the invasion, before he watched his wife and daughter die in an orbital bombardment. Now he worked in the titanium mines, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. He was 45 years old but looked 60. Most people did after years under Vraxian rule. The crowd grew larger. Vraxian soldiers stood around the edges, their weapons ready. They did not need to point them at anyone. Everyone knew what those weapons could do. A single shot could burn through a human body like it was paper. At exactly noon, Overlord Thrakis arrived. He was the governor of this sector, the Vraxian who controlled 5 colony worlds and billions of human lives. He walked on 4 legs, his body rising twice the height of a tall man. His mandibles clicked together as he surveyed the crowd. To him, humans were insects. Useful insects, but insects nonetheless. 20 humans were brought onto the platform. Their hands were bound. Their clothes were torn and dirty. These were members of the Resistance, fighters who had tried to sabotage a Vraxian supply depot. They had failed. The Vraxians always caught Resistance fighters eventually. Thrakis began to speak. His voice was translated by devices the humans were forced to wear. You see before you the price of defiance, he said. These criminals thought they could challenge the might of the Vraxian Empire. They were wrong. Let this be a lesson to all who harbor thoughts of rebellion. One by one, the prisoners were executed. The Vraxians did not use weapons. That would be too quick, too merciful. Instead, they used their own claws, making each death slow and painful. The crowd was forced to watch. Children buried their faces in their parents' clothes. Adults stood with tears streaming down their faces, unable to look away. Deho watched with dead eyes. He had seen too many executions to feel much anymore. The pain had been replaced by a hollow numbness. He simply waited for it to end so he could return to the mines. Then he saw the boy. Hyunwoo was 12 years old, small for his age, with dark hair that fell across his eyes. He stood at the front of the crowd and he was crying. Not quiet tears, he was sobbing, his whole body shaking. Deho followed the boy's gaze and understood. One of the prisoners was older, maybe 18, with the same eyes as the boy. Brothers. When the older brother's turn came, Hyunwoo screamed. He tried to run forward, but hands held him back. People in the crowd grabbed him, held him tight, whispered desperate pleas for him to be quiet. Drawing attention was dangerous, but the boy could not stop screaming his brother's name. Thrakus heard. His head turned toward the sound. For a moment everyone held their breath. Then the Vraxian continued with the execution, and the crowd exhaled in relief. Hyunwoo collapsed, held up only by the arms of strangers. The execution ended. The bodies were left on the platform as a warning. The Vraxians did not allow humans to bury their dead after executions like this. The bodies would stay there for 3 days, then be burned. It was another way to break the human spirit, to make them feel less than nothing. The crowd dispersed quickly. Everyone wanted to get away from that place, to return to their homes and try to forget what they had seen. Daeho walked back toward the mines, his shift starting in an hour. He passed Hyunwoo, who sat on the ground, staring at the platform with empty eyes. The boy's sobs had stopped. Now he just stared. That night, Daeho could not sleep. He lay in his small room in the workers' barracks and thought about the boy. He thought about his own daughter, who would have been about Hyunwoo's age if she had lived. He thought about how the light had gone out of the boy's eyes by the end of the execution. At midnight, alarms began to sound. Daeho sat up, his heart racing. Alarms meant someone had entered a restricted zone. The Vraxians would hunt them down within minutes. By morning, everyone knew what had happened. Hyunwoo had snuck into the square after dark, trying to take his brother's body. He wanted to bury him properly, to give him the respect that the Vraxians denied. The boy had made it onto the platform before the patrols caught him. Normally, they would have killed him on the spot. But Thrakus saw an opportunity. He announced that Hyunwoo would be executed in 3 days in front of the entire sector. Every human would be required to watch. The execution would be special, Thrakus promised. It would be something no one would ever forget. A demonstration of what happened to those who defied Vraxian law, even children. The announcement spread through the colony like wildfire. Then it spread further. Smugglers carried the news to other colonies. Secret communication networks passed it along. Within hours, humans on a dozen worlds knew about the boy who was going to die for trying to bury his brother. Something changed. Daeho felt it in the mines. Workers who normally kept their heads down began whispering to each other. There was an anger in their voices that had not been there before. In the barracks that night, someone said what everyone was thinking.
They are going to kill a child.
Just a child who wanted to bury his brother. Daeho looked around the room. He saw faces that had been empty for years, suddenly showing emotion. Not fear. Anger. Raw, burning anger. He thought about his daughter again. He thought about Hyunwoo, sitting alone in a cell somewhere, waiting to die. He thought about 70 years of executions, of cruelty, of living like animals while the Vraxians fed on humanity's labor and spirit. For the first time in decades, Daeho felt something other than numbness. He felt rage, and he was not alone.